Hello learners, I am Dr.Gyanendra Tiwari, reader, Amity University, Noida, and today we will discuss about Vygotski theory. It is a very important theory of psychology and it is very important for the teachers and teacher educators. So, first of all, we will try to get a brief history of Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist and he was born on November 1896 in Orsa, a city in the western region of Russian Empire. He attended Moscow State University, where he graduated with a degree in law in 1917. His formal work in psychology did not begin until 1924, when he attended the Institute of Psychology in Moscow and began collaborating with Alexei Leontief and Alexander Luria. His interests in psychology were quite diverse, but often centered on the topics of child development and education. He also explored such topics as psychology of art and language development. So, we will discuss about the theory of Vygotsky. Vygotsky placed more emphasis on social contribution to the process of development. This differs from the theory of Piaget. He focused on the connection between people and the socio-cultural context in which they act and interact in shared experiences. According to Vygotsky, humans are tools that develop from a culture such as speech and writing to mediate their social environment. Initially, children develop these tools to serve solely as social functions, ways to communicate needs. The social formation of mind, according to Vygotsky, he believed that individual development could not be understood without reference to social media and cultural context within which such development is embedded. Now, you can learn from this picture that the children are playing together and they learn a lot of things during this process. So, how mind evolution occurs? It is a continuous process. Unlike Piaget or Brunner, Vygotsky focused on the mechanism of development, excluding distinguishable developmental stages. He opposes that there should be not such stages, and the theoretical assumptions of Vygotsky possess that the idea that a single abstract principle such as equilibration can explain cognitive development is rejected. Then what he have done? He offered an alternative to Piaget constructivism theory. So, it is important to understand that what is the basic difference between the Piaget and Vygotsky theory. According to Piaget, mind models the external world. Human beings make senses of their world by means of their mental structures, whereas in Vygotsky theory, he speaks that external world models the mind. Knowledge is internalization of social activity. So, the basic difference is that in Piaget theory, he talks about that mind models the external world, whereas in Vygotsky theory, external world models the mind. So, the most important concept in the theory of Vygotsky is of mediation. What is mediation? Mediation means that human beings purposefully interpose tools between them and their environment in order to modify it and obtain certain benefits. For example, farmers plow the earth to acquire better crops. So, as you can see in the picture that farmer is using a tool for some purpose, and this is called mediation. Now, mediation is a central concept in Vygotsky's view of cognitive development. It offers a complementary perspective to the behaviorist view may have seen in the theory of Piaget. Here, the mediation is a very important concept that explains the cognitive development in the child. He states that by using activity mediators. The human being is able to modify the environment, and this is her or his way of interacting with the nature. So, mediation explains that how we learn from the environment. There are two phenomena mark the mediated relationship of human with their environment. There may be two kind of environment and two kind of relationship. For example, the first one is the use of tool within the social organized activity. Here we use a tool within the social organized activity, whereas in the second phenomena the use of language as a cultural form of mediation. What it means? It means that the social organized activity may be used as a tool, or the language can also be used as a tool. Now, mediation leads to intelligence, and intelligence leads to higher mental processes. So, how people convert social relationship into psychological function? As you can see in this picture, they use different types of languages. There are many signs as mediator between their minds and their environment. For example, if we understand from this picture, there are internal representation and there are external events. There are certain filters. These filters are values and beliefs, language, memories, decision, time coding and meta programs. So, it explains the behavior of human child. Now, during humankind evolution, more complex structures of activity mediated by more complex tool produce more complex mental structures. Psychological tools enable us to perform higher mental functions. There are various systems for counting, then mnemonic techniques, algebraic symbol systems, works of art, writings, schemes, diagrams, maps and technical drawing, all sort of conventional science. So, in higher mental processes, it is important that we use the process of intelligence, the ability of intelligence, and this comes from the mediation. So, in higher mental processes there are many kinds of mediation. One is symbolic mediation. Symbolic mediation means when a child tries to grasp an object and parents interpret this gesture as a pointing out to the subject, they give her or him the object. She internalizes the gesture as the way of acquiring the object. So, how it occurs? You may have seen around you that the parents try to understand that what the child requires. If the child is pointing some object, the parents try to give the object to the child. So, they understand that this is the way of asking for any object, and similarly the child also understand that this is the way that I can get this object by this particular gesture. So, after repeating this behavior with other objects, the mental repetition of this behavior becomes more abstract, because the child can ask for the object again and again with the same repeated behavior, and an interpersonal relationship between the child and parent become intrapersonal. So, the child's representation of acquiring object, there is a concept of deconstructualization. The use of abstract language is the most important, because and the sign is mediated behavior that occurs during cognitive development. So, it appears as a detachment from the individual features of the environment. So, you can take an example when a children start to play with abstract object, and this explains that how he is detached from the individual features of the environment. The important concept of Vygotski theory is zone of proximal development, in short we speak ZDP. So, it is a very revolutionary concept that is explained by the Vygotski to explain the cognitive development of the child. Zone of proximal development represents one of the most obvious difference between the Vygotsky theory and the Piaget's view of cognitive development. Zone of proximal development explains that how a teacher, how a senior, how a peer senior can help a child to understand the new concept, to learn that what the child can learn, the child have the potential. And so, it is obvious that a question may arise in your mind that what is zone of proximal development. Now, you can understand by this picture that there is a inner circle, then there is a outer circle, and the inner circle is the child's current achievement, whereas the outer circle represents zone of proximal development, and outside the circle there is a beyond reach as present. So, this is the potential, the beyond reach as present is the potential of the child that can be achieved, and the green circle explains that what the child has achieved, but there is a difference between these two, and this difference from the child achieved and the potential he has is the zone of proximal development, and here the role of teacher appears. How? Because the teacher or the more knowledgeable other can help the child to learn and to achieve the reach the goal, and to cover this zone of proximal development. Now, this is a Vygotskian concept that explains the mechanism of cognitive development. So, it is actually the gap between the actual competence level, what problem level or student is able to independently solve, and the potential development level, that what problem level could she or he solve with the guidance from a tutor. So, it is a gap between the actual competence level and the expected competence level. So, the role of teacher and the more knowledgeable other comes to cover the distance of zone of proximal development. It is based on the mental functions that have not yet matured, but are being in the process of maturation. And we can understand zone of proximal development by this figure, where there are 4 stages. In the first stage, it starts with the capacity begin, then second stage, and then third stage, then fourth stage. So, in the first stage, parents, experts, coaches, teachers, peers, they provide assistance and they are called more knowledgeable other, whereas at second stage the assistance provided by the self. So, at the first stage the assistance provided by the teacher or the more knowledgeable other, at the second stage the child becomes able to get assistance from themselves, and to these 2 stages explains that how a child can cover zone of proximal development. Now, at this stage the capacity develops, and after development of the capacity the stage 3 occurs, and this stage internalization, automatization and fossilization is the process that takes place, and in the fourth stage de-automatization occurs, and then again the loops continues. So, that is how the child learns. Zone of proximal development supports a representation of intellectual development based on continuity. It states that learning can force cognitive development, and it is also important to understand that this concept of Vygotsky is a revolutionary concept. Why? Because it allows a teacher or more knowledgeable other and the senior peers to understand the child potential and their entering behavior and help them to get the potential to their optimum level. Now, it states the role of teacher as necessary mediator of child's cognitive development. As you can see in the figure that the child is learning from the teacher. So, the teacher is helping the child to get over the zone of proximal development to achieve the maximum potential. Now, what is learning, what is instruction and development in Vygotsky view? So, it is important to understand that what Vygotsky thought about the concept of learning and understanding. So, the only good type of instruction according to Vygotsky is that which leads the cognitive development. So, for example, if anything is learned by the child and it is not helping in the cognitive development, it means that is not a good type of instruction, and the only good type of learning is that which is in advance of the development. Learning that is situated within the current development level is not desirable. So, if the learning helps the child to increase the development level of the learner, then it is a example of good learning. And the same thing is with the good type of instruction, that instruction that helps the child to increase the cognitive development, then it is called good type of instruction. Now, the question arises that how could we understand the statement that some learning does not being development. So, it means that there are two types of learning and two types of instruction. One helps in the development of the learner, whereas the other type of learning is not helping the learner. So, as a teacher, you are required to understand this concept. You can understand the concept by some of Vygotsky thought, and one important thought is scaffolding. What is scaffolding? Scaffolding is a cognitive development in the zone of proximal development. It stresses the role of a social partner of the student. So, any teacher or a more skilled peer can this social partner. You can understand the concept of scaffolding by the figure. Here the instructor become a supportive tool for the student in the zone of proximal development. The characteristics of an ideal teacher are those of a scaffold, because scaffold helps the learner to understand the new concept and to solve the problem. So, the social partner, the teacher, the more knowledgeable other, the senior peer, that a person is helping is scaffolding. And as you can understand that scaffolding is very important concept. Why? Because it provides support, it functions as a tool, it extends the range of the worker, it allows to accomplish a task otherwise impossible, it is used selectively when needed. So, it is a support system, it is a tool, because teacher is also used as a tool here in Vygotsky theory, and it increases the ability of the learner. So, he can do the things that he can't do alone, because of the social support, the social partner is helping the learner, he can do a lot of things as per his or her potential, and it allows to accomplish a task that looks otherwise impossible, because alone a child can't do many tasks, but the child may have the potential, and with the help of the other knowledgeable person or the social partner, and that is a teacher in most of the cases, he can do these things possible. And this process of scaffolding is used selectively. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you may not need it. In Vygotsky view, learning is an interactive interpersonal activity. Instructor and student construct the solution to problem, because it is a constructive approach where the problem is solved together with the learner and the teacher. And inequality between the partner resides only in their respective level of understanding, because authority is shared. The partner who is more knowledgeable helps the partner who is less knowledgeable. In this case, the child is the partner who has the less knowledge, and the teacher is the partner who has more knowledge. So, the teacher helps the child to understand the new concept, to do some more tasks, and to develop the learner to his optimum level of development. Now, the psychological mechanism is to create external activity that will later internalized by the student. So, initially the teachers help to learn the child, but again and again, if the same process is repeated, the learner also develop the ability to learn by themselves. So, because the process, in this process, the learner internalized all the things. So, we can take an example of Palsender reciprocal learning. It is an instructional strategy for improving reading comprehension, and it is based on the Vygotski theory. And in this theory, intersubjectivity comes together with scaffolding. Now, we have learned a lot about all the things, like there are many concepts, and concept of social interaction, concept of more knowledgeable other, concept of zone of proximal development. So, we will try to summarize the theory. Now, we are in position to understand the theory, and there are three major themes followed in the theory, and these are social interaction, the more knowledgeable other, and the zone of proximal development, as we have already discussed that. And then we will try to understand that what is the details of each and every theme of the Vygotski theory, what is social interaction, what is more knowledgeable other, and what is zone of proximal development. I think you are already in a position to understand these concepts. So, we will understand by this graphic that there are three levels: what I can do, what I can do, and there is a zone in between, that what I can do with the help. So, there are three questions: what I can do, it is the entering behavior; what I can't do, it is a level where the child has to reach; and what I can do with the help, that is zone of proximal development. Now, what is social interaction? Vygotski felt that social learning anticipates development. He states, every function in the child's cultural development appears twice, first on the social level and later on the individual level. First between people, that is interpsychological, and then inside the child, that is intrapsychological. So, there are two levels, interpsychological and intrapsychological. Interpsychological means between, and intra means within. Now, according to Vygotski, the young children are curious and they are actively involved in their own learning and the discovery and the development of new understanding. As you can see from the picture, the child play together, and during the process of playing, they learn a lot. Sometimes they have to interact with many other senior or older age children. So, they learn from them. They play with their parents. So, they learn from them. If they do any activity or task assigned from the school with some more knowledgeable other, they learn from them. And then you may have understanding of what is more knowledgeable other. The more knowledgeable other refers to someone who has a better understanding of a higher ability level than the learner with respect to a particular task, process or concept. For example, teacher, other adults, advanced students, sometimes even computers. So, the computers, mobiles, laptops, social media, internet or any person who is senior, grandparents, parents, peers, anyone around the child that is having more knowledge than the child and is helping the child in the zone of proximal development may be referred as more knowledgeable other. In this case, as you can see that the teacher is helping the child to learn different mathematical operations. Many times a child peers or an adult children may be the individual with more knowledge or experience. For example, who would know more about the latest teen music group, how to be the newest Black Ops game, or what is the latest dance move or child or their parents. So, we have already discussed the concept of zone of proximal development, and this is an important concept that relates the difference between what a child can achieve independently and what a child can achieve with the guidance and encouragement from a skilled partner. According to Vygotski, learning occurs here. It is important to mention that Vygotski sees the zone of proximal development as the area where the most sensitive instruction or guidance should be given, allowing the children to develop skills they will then use on their own, developing higher mental functions. You can have example of ZPD around you. If they are reading the words of the book out loud to you as you follow along, and they come across a word that is unfamiliar to them and they ask for help. Instead of directly telling them the word, show them pictures of ask them question about what they just read. They will figure the word out on their own and come to understand what the word mean on their own. They will later learn to do it themselves first before they are asking for help. The theory of Vygotsky differ a lot from the theory of Piaget, because Vygotsky places more emphasis on culture affecting shaping cognitive development, whereas the Piaget theory has certain stages of development. Vygotsky places considerably more emphasis on social factors, whereas Piaget is criticized for underestimating this thing. Vygotsky places more emphasis on the role of language in cognitive development. Again, the Piaget is criticized for lack of emphasis on this. So, how teachers can use this theory? This theory is very useful for teachers, because they can give online projects, they can use videos and interactive worksheets. Even with the technology and without technology, they can do the same thing. Students can also use technology like internet, library database, and they can chat, they can have chat rooms. A student will be able to use endless amount of resources, and this is also based on the theory of zone of proximal development. And the classrooms also can follow the theory of Vygotsky, where they provide groups for peer interaction. The environment of the classroom, the design of material can be framed according to the Vygotsky theory, and they can lead a classroom community. And there is a practical application of Vygotsky theory. The teacher can give them assignment, the teacher can give them group projects, and the teacher can give them the knowledge of trusted website, where the learner can learn from the internet also. So, this is all about the Vygotsky theory. I am sure that you will be able to understand the different concepts of the Vygotsky theory, and today we have learned about the major concepts of Vygotsky theory, like the zone of proximal development, the more knowledgeable adult, and the social interaction. I hope that this can help as a teacher in the classroom, and if you can use this theory in the classroom, it will be helpful to develop the learner at the optimum level. Thank you.